As late as the 5th to the 7th century, Shanghai area, which was known as Shen or Hudu, was sparsely populated and undeveloped. Despite the steady southward progression of the Chinese settlement, the exposed deltaic position of the area retarded its economic growth. Good morning, Internet. We're going to take a quick tour through Shanghai's history this morning, and starting off in the History Museum, going to tell a little bit of the history of Shanghai. Now, interesting, the first thing we see in the History Museum is Western cars. Why? Well, after 1815, the Chinese surrendered Shanghai to Britain. This followed the humiliating defeat they had after the First Opium War in 1839 to 1842. And this opened the city to unrestricted foreign trade. The British, French, and Americans took possession of it, and later, well, in 1895, they were joined by the Japanese. Now let's take a step back. During the Song Dynasty, about 960 to 1126, Shanghai started emerging from being a small, isolating fishing village into a shipping center. And this was because the Chinese started fleeing south from the invading Mongols in the north, and they realized that this could be a very good harbor. And that was during the Ming Dynasty, during about 1400s to 1600s, that roughly 70% of these areas around Shanghai was then started to be cultivated. And by the middle of the 18th century, there were more than 20,000 persons employed in Shanghai as cotton spinsters. Now, after the Opium War, the Shanghai quickly were open to foreign business, and it led to the establishment of major European banks and commercial houses. Very quickly, it became the biggest center of imports in the country, and by 1860, it accounted for about 25% of the total shipping into China. However, Shanghai did not show promise of becoming a major industrial center. It was only after the Sino-Japanese War of 1895 that light industries were established in Shanghai to take advantage of the supply of local raw materials and inexpensive power. In contrast, though, the local Chinese didn't invest in Shanghai industry until World War I, where they started investing in the early 1920s. But most of these ventures were killed by the Great Depression of the 1930s. Yeah, the Chinese didn't really got a foothold into Shanghai until the Sino-Japanese War of 1937 to 45, or the Second World War then, when Japan gained control over China. And it was in this period between 1920 and 1945 where the growing political awareness in Shanghai started standing up. During the Japanese occupation during the Second World War, Shanghai suffered a lot of war damage and also economic suffering. It was only after the Communist Party took over in 1948-49 that the trade was resumed to Shanghai, and after the 1960s, when Shanghai removed its key position as China's leading scientific and technology research center, where it started booming. In the beginning of the 20th century, 21st century rather, Shanghai transformed itself into China's most advanced city, and it became the center of the country's economic life, which it now is. Food, but you don't have clothes, you don't have whole industry, cotton production, people grow. So after taking over in 1930 and they're arriving with more than 20 warships here in the Yangtze River, the British quickly established the normal British lifestyle of extravagance in Shanghai. And also the courts were taken over. The courts was attended with a British judge and a Chinese judge, and it had absolute power. Today, what is known as Yan'an Road was then a British settlement, and later became the line between the French and the British concession. So Shanghai's grocery shops was called the tobacco and paper shop because the most thing they supplied was tobacco and toilet paper. And these were normally run at the entrances to places by a husband and wife combination. A typical artist portrait shop, still very popular in China. And in those days, no photographs, so you had to get an artist to paint your picture. And obviously all the men had long hair. Remember in one video we did mention that if you were a criminal, then your hair would be cut off. Hot water or boiling water plays an important part in Chinese. Even today, all they need is boiling water to get going. And these was known as the tiger shops, or tiger stove shops, where you could buy hot water or boiling water. Also, obviously, you could get tea. This is what the famous Nanjing Road looked like in the 1930s. Today, obviously, one of the main attractions of Shanghai. We've already been there in one of the previous videos. Today, obviously, it is a bust of activity. And then tea houses was very popular in China. In those times. Extremely popular in those times. Of the tea house of the 1870s. After the Opium Wars, Custom House was replaced again by the Shanghai Custom House in Asian style, and this house was then used to collect revenue from the incoming ships in the imports and docking fees. Now the British lived in absolute splendor in Shanghai, and in contrast with that, in 1930 there was a lot of shack dwellers that just lived right next to them. Just a little further was the German Commerce, the German Club. Just on the other side, the shack builders. French style houses, American style houses, Dutch style houses, Spanish style houses could all be seen here in Shanghai. There were the more commercial buildings, a palace style building at the time of French Louis the 16th, Old General Post Office, British style building. Into a Chinese style buildings. Now, today Shanghai is one of the biggest commercial trade centers in China and one of the biggest cities in China, and a living buzz. We're going to end this video here, and if you enjoyed it, please give us a big thumbs up and subscribe, and then we'll come back, and in our next video we're going to see Shanghai from the river at night. See you then. Bye.
I got the cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gone living life on the attack. Baby, not bad. I just wanna get caught up in this life I'm